A very good afternoon to all of you ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our sunset safari, where I have discovered something new that I'm going to share with you just from my observations. My name is Jamie Patterson, and I have Brian this afternoon on camera with me. We've got the full complement out and about. We've got Andrew flying the drone, Peter driving around on Jigger with VM, as well as James and Hayden around the tent. So we've really got a fantastic time ahead. I'm going to be very shortly joining Scott, who is out on bushwalk, and we're going to see if we can follow up on Mvula, the male leopard. I'm going to tell you a bit more about that in one moment, but before I do, I'm hoping these birds are going to stick around, because I've learned something interesting. And I've decided that for every show that I do, whether I'm driving or walking, each one will have Jamie's fun fact of the day. And it'll be something that I've learned, since there's a new lesson to learn every single live safari. I might need to come up with a better tagline than Jamie's fun facts, and I'm open to suggestions. These yellow-billed oxpeckers, we've seen them fairly regularly. I was with them the last time I did a sunset safari with Brian, and they're in a pair, and they're always on the same buffalo. Now, I want to share more about this with you, but for now, it seems as though Scott has found something very exciting to show you.
Can you believe it? Get down, get down, get down. I'm just going to whisper into my mic. As Jean-Andre zooms in, you'll see there's a leopard up ahead of us. I can't believe it. We thought he was going to be drinking down at the dam. We heard some of the thick knees, some birds that were alarm calling. And this leopard was seen late this morning by Hayden. He did a late morning drive. And I'm guessing this is the same leopard. This is Mvula. Can you believe it? We're going to ask Nikki, please, to get Peter or Jamie here as quickly as possible. He doesn't even know we're here. The wind is in our favor, blowing towards Jean-Andre. And as long as we sit still in the shadows here, he probably won't even notice us. Can you believe this? What a great start to the afternoon. Now, I don't want to closer to him in the fear that we may chase him away. And most of the time when you encounter cats on foot, be it lion, leopard or cheetah, they will often run away from you. They're not confrontational animals unless you push them to, or unless they've got a real reason to hate man, which in this area they don't. So as long as we treat them with respect and respect this distance between us, there should be no problems. If we try and get closer, it may agitate him. So we're just going to wait here for Jamie to arrive. I don't think it's going to take I don't actually think he's going to go anywhere. It's quite a hot afternoon, and he's just relaxing in the shade back there. So I think we're in a really fortunate position. If he was on the move now, it would be a lot more tricky to stay with him until Jamie got here. I can't believe he still doesn't know we're here. There is a strong chance, though, that he may look around and then notice us. They do have very good vision. What an absolute surprise. We had driven up the road towards the dam in the hope that we'd find some of his tracks, and we didn't find any, and we were about to start the long and tedious search trying to work out where his footprints would lead us to. And then Bright, one of the trackers that some of you may remember, alerted us to the water thick knee calls. So instead of walking back to where he was last seen, we walked towards the dam, and voila! And it's not only Bright back in camp, there's also Jeffrey. So we've got two wonderful trackers back in camp. Oh, now look, he's gone to sleep. Can you believe this? Absolutely crazy. Okay, well, apparently Jamie's going to be about another 5 or 6 minutes, so I'm just going to get comfortable here. And whoever thought that we'd be able to sit in the African bush about 60 meters away from a leopard. Oh. I think he's noticed us. He may have heard us. But I'm not too sure. He could well have heard us. he kind of looked back. He didn't lock eye contact with us, so I don't think he actually worked out that we were right here. But it is very possible that he could detect that we're here. They've got incredible hearing, and it is possible that he will find us. And if he does see us, he'll probably just look at us. But there is that slight chance. Look at his tail wagging from side to side there. Now, this is a great ambush opportunity for him, waiting at the waterhole. And anything is possible. He could possibly get lucky and have some nyala or impala coming down to drink. And I'm really excited for you guys to take a closer look at this leopard, because he doesn't seem to be in the best condition. If this is in fact Mvula, which I'm guessing it is, he's an old male leopard. And the last time we saw him, he was looking a bit worse for wear, a little bit thin. He had a bit of a limp, and he has been chased out of this territory by Tingana, who's a big male. Hello to Shamal, and very happy to hear that you are as astounded as we are with this incredible sight. And what's going to be even better is when Jamie gets here and you're going to be able to appreciate some close-up views of him. But for now, the fact that we're viewing him on foot is absolutely remarkable. I can hear something. It could be some bushbuck's alarm calling. I think it is. It's such thick bush here. I can't be certain, but something's certainly making a barking noise. It could be a nyala. And you can see how he's pricked up his ears looking in that direction. So possibly those nyala that he was going to get lucky to ambush were too sharp and detected him. It's not going to be easy for prey to see him while he's sitting in the shadows like this. And we've just got a comment through from Susie thing that he did hear us, and yeah, I think you might be right. When he turned his head back a little bit earlier, Susie, there is quite a strong chance that something wasn't quite right, and that's why he looked back here. But I'm confident that he didn't actually work out what exactly, and that's why he just kind of gazed over in this direction, but didn't lock eyes with us. He would have been a lot more kind of concerned and focused on us if he did actually see us. So Jamie's getting close by now, and let's just let her know that he's lying up on the dam wall. So depending on where she's approaching from, he's on the kind of eastern side of the dam wall. And I think she's approaching along the same road that we came along. So she'll probably see us as she goes past, which will be great, and we'll be able to show it to you. And Clown Sharon would like to know exactly which dam wall Mvula's lying on. Clown Sharon, this is Buffels Hook Dam. And this is the only water on Djuma where Mvula's territory overlaps. He no longer comes nearly as far as the Djuma waterhole. Whereas when I started here this time last year, His territory encompassed the whole of Djuma, including the waterhole and the far western banks of Djuma leading up to Arathusa. This is awesome. You're about to get some incredibly good views of this male leopard, and I'm so happy that we could find him for you. I'll move out without him actually seeing or seeing us. Oh, I think he may have just spotted us now, but that's probably because Jamie's car's coming here. So once she gets in the way, in between us and him, we'll be able to extract safely. Can you believe this? This is absolutely crazy. And I'm so happy that we've got this safari off to such an incredible start. And there goes Jamie. She's just going to get into a good position before we link you across to her. And this is so awesome. Brian and Jamie are now ready. They've got good signal, and we're going to creep away and leave you guys with the leopard. Enjoy.
And how cool is that? That Scott was able to bring you that incredible view of Mvula on foot. There, let me tell you from experience, there is probably no better feeling in this world. That is absolutely incredible. Now we've managed to rush one of our vehicles in. I'm so excited. This is the first time I've ever had a proper view of an incredible experience. I've never ever seen him before. Now I wanted to just make sure that we could bring you this picture before I try and reposition slightly. I can't go through to the other side of him because that will put us into the dip and you'll lose our signal. So we'll be watching him for now. What an awesome way for our sunset safari. Head down, fast asleep. You can see that he was not in any way disturbed by Scott making his way in here. What I'm going to try and do is put us up on the dam wall. Give us a clearer view. And Anne, since he was found on foot by Scott, you were saying that you hope Scott's tree climbing skills are as good as Mvula. I must say, I think when faced with a leopard, I wouldn't be thinking about climbing trees, although I'm sure Scott's tree climbing skills are considerably more impressive than my uncoordinated efforts. But I imagine that Mvula might have the best of the bunch of us in terms of tree climbing. Let me try and get up onto the dam wall. We might be able to see him better. And also stop us from disappearing in every now and again. There we go, a slightly better view of a massive male. Now Sharon, you were wondering how close we are and how close Scott was, and just to give you a rough idea, at the moment we are sitting probably about 12 meters away from him. When Scott saw him, He was at about 40 meters away from where Scott was sitting crouched. Hard to tell when we're looking at him from behind, but he could well be ready to go and catch a meal. We've definitely arrived at the perfect time. Oh, those eyes. It's so incredible to have a chance to see a leopard that I have never really seen, but I've heard so much about. Epic experience. Now we're going to spend as much time as possible with him, but there are going to be cars that will want to come and share the sighting with us. Let's enjoy him for as long as we can. I think what we should do, I want to get across to the other side of the dam so that we can see Mvula from the face onwards, and I know that I will lose signal, so while I do that, let's head across to James, who has an amazing snake to show you in the tent, and I'll be back with you very, very shortly.
Well, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to the tent where we are sitting here, obviously in the beauty of the... I'm just going to turn this phone off, sorry. We've got so many different communication devices here, it's all enough to boil the brain. My name is James Hendry. I'm sitting here on Quarantine Clearing's western view of the sky, where the sun will shortly set out to that side. Tebs is on camera. The drone commander is just out to the side. He's looking at some wildebeest just now, and there are some surprises in store for us today. Very interestingly, we have discovered here a blind snake. Now, it's one of three different kinds of blind snake: a Schintz's, a Schlegel's, or a Peter's. Now, let's go into the microscope view and have a look at him here. He's actually really fascinating to look at through the microscope. We'll head through to the microscope now. Shortly we will head through to the microscope. Hang on a second, sorry. I'm missing the final control. Go again with that. Okay, we're going to quickly go across to the leopard. He's moving now. We'll come back to the snake now.
I was going to reposition, but then Mvula did it for me. To have my first look at Mvula in action. Absolutely incredible, the strength that this leopard has. Now, if we have any new viewers out there, or somebody who's joining us for the first time, I believe that Mvula is 10, maybe even 11 years old. He's the dominant male in this section of Djuma, but this is pretty much on the border of his territory with another male who's known as Tingana. I know that Mvula, for the most part over the last few years, has been the dominant male that has been around this side, and generally seen mating with Karula, who is of course the queen of Djuma. And what an incredible sighting we are being treated to this afternoon. Donna, I think you're right in this change of view. It definitely looks as though James and Hayden were absolutely correct. He looks like he could use a good meal. He is looking hungry. He might be out on the prowl. It would be unlikely for him to go hunting in the next hour or so, but it is very hot. Ginny, this is my first time seeing him as well, and I absolutely agree with you. His neck is enormous. It's incredible to see that powerful, solid structure, and that will have served him very well over his years as the dominant male in this territory. Help defend him, keep those vital veins and arteries and the trachea safe from the attentions of other males if he gets into fights. And then of course having the strength to drag sometimes exceptionally heavy prey up into trees. A leopard that is pure power and strength. It's beauty in motion. As I said, it's blistering hot this afternoon, so he's decided he's very thirsty. He's going to have his work cut out for him, hunting now, because there's lots of groundwater around, so the animals are scattered out all over the place. And I think he might go back to his position in the shade. Okay, I'm glad that we could make you happy. Apparently you've been missing Mvula. Well, I'm thrilled to see him. Oh, he's going to lie down right there. Interesting.
Right, everyone, sorry about that. We will take you straight back to Mvula as soon as the signal does become stable there, and I'll keep an eye on it. So let's quickly have a look at the snake. Right, let's try again. Let's head back across to this magnificent microscope feed that we have, and I'm going to show you a few bits and pieces about this amazing little snake. So as I said, a Schlegel's, a Schlintz's, or a Peter's blind, and they have various different... show you on the head. Right, across to the microscope. Here we go. Now, apparently we can't get... Okay, so... Sorry, 1 second. We're just having one or two technical difficulties. In the meantime... Oh, there we go. Well done. Okay, so... Now, the most important or interesting thing to look at there is that thing there. That is an eye, believe it or not. It's called a parietal eye. And the parietal eye is photosensitive, which means basically it's responsible not for seeing and forming images, but for testing night and day, and it's responsible for regulating what's known as the circadian rhythm. So whether or not, or when an animal decides to be awake and around and active, and when it decides to hibernate, and when it decides to mate, and all those sorts of things are governed often by day length. And that's what that eye is for, the circadian rhythm. Wonderful things, circadian rhythms. I love discussing them in humans especially. Then we've got one other interesting thing to show you here, and that's the mouth. There you can see the mouth of this little snake. It's open. The snake is dead. Please don't think that I'm harming it at all. But there's the little mouth. It's absolutely astonishing. And you can see it doesn't have very obvious fangs at all. And we are going to go to an imaginary ad break, everybody. So if I say, see you just now, and then carry on talking, it's not because we're actually going anywhere. All right, so we're going to look into his mouth there. Not much to see, really, in the way of enormous and terrifying fangs. And that's because these snakes are not particularly dangerous to human beings. In fact, they're not dangerous at all. Right, we'll see you after the ad break. And miraculously we are back. Sorry, we do have to do these practices, everyone. We are going to do National Geographic Big Cat Week very soon, so we have to get into the habit. So you'll just have to bear with us for the next little while, I'm afraid. Right, let's look at its main defense now, which is not in fact its mouth, but this sting that is on the bottom of its bottom. There it is, and Steph was just trying to catch one now. He's outside fossicking about for various bits and pieces, and he was attacked viciously by this little sort of pointy end. And what the snake does is it wiggles around. If we come back to the view of the snake here, when you there it is. What you do is, what it does is it sort of strikes with its back end, and then the back end starts to waggle like this. And what that does is that it gives the potential predator the indication that this is the front end, okay, which is probably a lot more intimidating than that rather small little mouth that sits at that end. Okay, I think we're good to go with Mvula, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to quickly get an update on that so that you don't have to stare at me holding a worm type thing. Ah, no, we're not going back to Mvula. We're going to go back to the trackers, the people who found Mvula with Scott, and we'll see you a little bit later.
How awesome is this? We've got another black and yellow creature. What have I just heard? Take a close look. I'm just going to listen carefully. I think I may have heard a buffalo. but this is a beautiful beetle. I'm not sure if it's hiding now. It's busy eating this baboon stick. Nibbling this beautiful purple flower. And as I said, I'm pretty sure that this is a blister beetle that causes your skin to blister very badly if you handle them. They exude a horrible secretion from their leg joints, causing you to blister. Let's take a closer look here. I think I can actually see a buffalo, and they're quite close to us. And they're quite interesting animals to see on foot. Let's take a closer look here. Just going to test the wind quickly. That's good. Buffalo just up ahead to our left here. And if we creep forward this way, we should probably be able to get you some views of them without disturbing them. And then we're going to back up once we have got you a quick view. They're incredibly dangerous animals on foot, buffaloes, so we don't want to take any chances here. And if we just look straight through this little gap here, we might get you a few views of these mighty Cape buffalo. They look like a few buffalo bulls. You'll probably only be able to see their legs moving, and possibly the heads and horns are going to pop out shortly. And to all of you who have sent through very kind thank you messages for finding Mvula, don't thank me alone. It was also a 4-man team involving Jean-Andre, Bright and Jeffrey. I'm just going to stand back next to Jean-Andre here and see if he's managing any shots. I've given him a tricky job here. It's incredibly thick in there, but you may have got a glimpse, and we're now going to send you across to Mvula, and we're going to backtrack out of this situation and make sure we get into a safe area away from these buffalo. Enjoy the leopard.
And we've managed to find ourselves the perfect position, looking down and over Mvula as he rests in the sand. He's nudged himself into the perfect spot, and I bet that sand is wonderful and cool. Well, what an incredible start we have had to this afternoon safari. We've managed to reposition and move our way around so that we've got the perfect view of this male leopard. His name is Mvula, and he is one of the dominant boys of this territory, or he is the dominant boy of this territory, giving himself a very delicate little lick on the chest there. This is my first time seeing him. I'm absolutely astounded to have a look at the size and the strength in that neck. He's enormous. He actually almost doesn't have a neck. It's more like his head blends seamlessly into his shoulders. That's how much muscle there is there. And he's panting gently. I mentioned earlier, I think he's looking a little bit thin, like he could use a good meal. He will definitely be a busy leopard at some point, probably when the temperature starts to go down a little bit. For now, I think he's going to be happy to sit in the shade. And I imagine that sand is still slightly damp after the rain that we've had, so he's found himself a really nice, cool spot where he can rest for the afternoon. But we're in perfect position to then follow him as he goes about his late afternoon and evening activities. And this, of course, is a great vantage point to be at. He's at Buffelshoek Dam, and a lot of the animals will be passing by here every now and again to come for a drink. And there's something extremely stately about him, having just met him for the first time. He is very much the king leopard of this area, surveying his domain. Yesterday I was out on foot as part of the tracking team, and saw a leopard, and I'm starting to think it might have been Mvula. The more that I look at him and I think back to exactly where he was versus where he is now, he was only about maybe 2 kilometers away, but he was moving in this direction. Oh, exhausted. Something we've remarked upon a lot in the last few days is the fact that leopards manage to make whatever kind of position they are in look entirely comfortable. They drape, I think that's the perfect way to put it, they drape themselves over whatever they happen to be lying on, just like house cats do. We just had that amazing view of Mvula going down to Buffelshoek Dam to drink. And I must say, sitting up here, which is directly downwind of the dam, there's the distinct smell of stagnant water. And in answer to your question, Mercedes, who's watching in California, the water of Buffelshoek Dam I wouldn't really describe as clean, bearing in mind, of course, that the animals out here have a far greater immune system than we do. Now, that algae and slime that's sitting on the top, that's the first indication of some quite seriously stagnant and low water. And it does make it very smelly. There's a distinct mud smell that's rolling off the top of the dam. I'm sure you can hear the wind that's blowing in our direction. It's not clean. Buffalo defecate in it. The hippos that have been wallowing in here for the last few days, although they aren't here now, they will have been defecating and urinating in it. And of course the elephants also aren't too picky about it either. So when they come down and have a nice big mud wallow and move around, they're going to add their own level of excrement to it. So it's not clean, it's quite shallow, which means that dirty amount is rather concentrated. But never fear, the animals are a hell of a lot more resilient than we are. And they've got much stronger digestive systems. In terms of Mvula and all leopards, when they need to drink versus when they don't, you'll probably find that they show a preference for puddles, rainwater puddles. They're much cleaner, especially if the animals haven't been wallowing in them yet. But he will drink every day if he can. That being said, leopards don't need to drink as much as other carnivores. They're quite well adapted to go quite extended periods of time without water, and could probably do a week or so without having a drink. They get a lot of liquid from the animals that they kill, or the kills that they make, and the blood that they drink. Still a bit salty, so it's not an entirely perfect system. And so if they have a dam or have access to water, then they'll drink every day if they can. And I think he was just too lazy to go looking for fresh water. Now, he's lying on his left side, but Susie, I know that you mentioned that you saw Mvula had a porcupine, oh sorry, Julie, you noticed that Mvula had a porcupine quill on the left side of his neck. And so far, unfortunately for us, he hasn't presented that side for close inspection. It's very common to see leopards with porcupine quills either embedded in their lips or their noses or in their necks. And I think you'll probably find that either he will have pulled it out, or a buildup of pus and white blood cells around it will have pushed it out. But you never know, sometimes they do become embedded and very seriously infected, and they can actually disadvantage an animal. I saw that picture of Mvula. It didn't look too serious. I think it'll probably have made its way out by now. Unfortunately, it was in a rather tricky looking spot, which I think is probably why it was still in there. He can't quite bend his neck around to be able to get to it and pull it out with his teeth. And of course, porcupine quills are barbed instruments. It's not that easy getting them out. It's probably quite painful. And they're also, as I said, not the cleanest of weapons, so they can leave quite a serious infection. But again, same as the water issue, on the cleanliness of the water, these animals are far more resilient than we are. Their immune systems are built to protect them against incidents like this. Since they don't have medical aids, doctors and antibiotics on standby, for the most part they get on with things and they heal up incredibly well. Hopefully he'll lift his head for us at some point in this sighting and we'll be able to see if he's still got that quill. Alrighty, well, we're sitting with a leopard that is newish to me. I've seen him once through very thick bushes, but Wolfgang, you're watching all the way in Sweden, and I guess Mvula might be a new leopard for you as well, which is very exciting. You were wondering if I could spell it for you. Yes, I can. It is M-V-U-L-A, Mvula, and it means rain. I'm not quite sure where that name came from, but it's obviously something associated with this particular male. And if you guys do know the story behind it, then please let me know. And you can do that on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And of course, each of our leopards is unique and distinct and precious to us. And I know that Ginny, you wanted a close-up so we could have a look at his spot pattern. For now, we're not going to be able to get any closer. I'm sure at some point he is going to move, and then we'll hopefully be able to get ourselves into a better position. But I will be on the lookout for a spot pattern. And speaking of animals with unique spot patterns, I believe that Peter is at the home of another one of our special spotted animals. So let's head across to him so that he can say hello to you all.
Well, good afternoon everyone, and it seems we are spotting things everywhere. So brilliant viewing there, Scott and them finding Mvula. Fantastic to see that leopard. He's absolutely stunning. Jamie enjoying it as well. But as she said, from one spot pattern to another one. In fact, these guys, when they're very small, they don't have spots yet. But these two adults on the ground, they are so spotted that they're actually called spotted hyena. And while we've been sitting here, we've been here a couple of minutes. At first we thought it's just these two. Obviously we know there's a young one here, many of us. If it's your first safari with us, welcome firstly to Africa. For many of you, this is not the first one, it's the manyth one. And you'll know from the last few days and last couple of days actually, there's great viewing here of this young hyena. But at the moment he's in the den. We did view him very briefly, maybe for about 10-15 seconds. He popped his head out earlier, so he is awake. More so perhaps than his mother at the moment. This is the female, or the alpha female, that's the mother of the youngster, if that makes sense. She's the female we've been seeing with it suckling. And we're going to sit here for a few minutes. It is quite warm still, although for this time of year it's actually very pleasant. Sort of that, in that pleasant range of hot, not where you get uncomfortable yet. Also fantastic bit of good fortune to catch Mvula while he's drinking. There's certain things that you like to see in nature. When you're out here, you want to see everything firstly, obviously. But then there's certain things that's always great to see, and that would be, many of us, obviously, we're always looking for a hunt because of the excitement that comes with it. But also certain activities, and drinking is one of those. Whenever you get a nice big herd of elephant or pride of lion or wild dog when they're hunting, or leopard like we did this afternoon, it's always great to see them when they go drinking, just because I don't know, it's obviously beautiful being around a waterhole. Also, when you're looking at something, drinking water, anything else might approach. I guess that expectation that goes with it makes it exciting. And maybe also because as humans, we're water dependent, so you're always happy when something else is having a drink. A little bit like looking at these guys, because as humans, we also like to rest. And that's what they're doing. There's nothing much to do for them at the moment. They'll be more active again tonight. The rest of the clan, I assume, are not here at the moment. They could be sleeping just under a bush somewhere close by or far away even. And in the meantime, taking it easy is a good idea. Yeah, pulling him for. Sorry guys, I'm just talking to the game drive quickly. Yeah, he's inside now, but he's there, so you can come. He popped out a few minutes ago. Sorry, we try not to talk too much on the game drive channel when we live with you. But that is firstly a very good friend of mine, Abel. He was my first tracker that I ever worked with in Sabi Sands. He was the guy that taught me the roads, the area, introduced me to everyone, helped teach me Shangaan, so I couldn't ignore him on the road. I just had to say hi to him. He's going to come look as well. And I think what I'm tempted to do is we'll have one last look just at the entrance, if you want, or the hole where the den goes in, just in case the little guy pops his head out and surprises us. But if Abel gets closer, I'm probably going to pull out of here, because as we can see, they are sleeping at the moment. I want to continue on a little bit, see what else we might find, maybe even head up to Mvula as well, sort of over the next half an hour or so, and then come back here, if not myself, perhaps Jamie, just depending on how the rest of the day pans out. That's the beautiful thing with the safari, is that you don't really know what's going to happen as the afternoon unfolds. What's even better for us is you've got the ability to be on 2 different vehicles, as well as on the walk, as well as in the tent, and see things from the air. But especially 2 vehicles on a walk, that's the sort of 3 safari experiences that people come out here to see, and you've got the ability to jump between those, so you have a 300% chance of having a great afternoon. If you only have 1 vehicle, like the other safari vehicles, you only have a 100% chance of having a great afternoon. And I think what we're going to do is make a little bit of space here for Abel, so that he can sit here with his guest on his own, just like we've been fortunate enough to have this to ourselves, and then try and get back here a little bit later when it cools down. See if we can't get that young guy being active and playful with his mother and his, well, I guess it would be his cousin probably, most likely, the young hyena. This is probably, it's the first time I've seen this den active, obviously. I've seen many different hyena dens in this area over the years. There's one on Torchwood further to the east of us, which is under a natural rock bridge, granite rock bridge, which is spectacular. But this one I would say is up there with some of the most sort of beautiful settings as well of dens that I've seen. Just a big plummet mound, nice trees, nice shadow and shade around it. Very exciting to have that. And from a guiding point of view, for the safari guides or game rangers as they're sort of colloquially known sometimes, hyena den is a great sort of ace up the sleeve, if you want, or something in the bag already, because you know that if you've got guests coming out here and it's a quiet afternoon and it's maybe not leopard like we have today, or lion or elephant, all those other things, you know that the hyena den is something you can go to. So it's a really great sort of aspect of a sort of safari story, as is questions, obviously. Having a conversation, very important. So we have a chat with each other. Hello Deborah, great question. Deborah was just saying there that she's wondering whether the mother, in other words the female where we're looking at now, does she go off and feed and then come back, or do the clan bring food back for her? Deborah, it's the spotted hyena, it's a little bit of both, but mostly they go and feed on their own. So she will go away. I mean, we saw her yesterday morning. We had a great time with her at the den, but prior to that we actually saw her moving through quarantine, heading back this way after the night activity. So that youngster can sleep during the night. She goes off and feeds with the rest of the clan, and then in the morning she comes back and then spends a lot of the time, the daytime hours, with those youngsters. Guys, I'm going to say very quickly, as I said, this is a very good friend of mine. We can't show you the people, but Abel, nice to see you for a long time, eh? Very long. Grey hair coming everywhere for us. Yeah. We're live at the moment. Oh, there's Abel. Great. Hold on, man. As I was just telling them about Abel, guys, this is the first guy that I worked with. He taught me the roads, the tracks. All my friends I have here now, some Shangaan, so you can have an awesome time. Do you know Abel from before? Okay, well, then you know. All right. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Hey. Thanks, cool, guys. Enjoy it.
Thanks.
Apologies for interrupting ourselves there in our conversation, but with hyena, so that's pretty much how it would work. The brown hyena, which is a different species, which we actually get here, but they're seen only once every 17 years or so, judging by the last time we saw one. They often take food back to the den. But spotted hyena, they do. I mean, you do find food back at the den, but often that would be bones and things they take back more for the youngsters really to feed on, to play with, to hone their teeth on, kind of thing. It's not like with wild dogs. Wild dogs, for instance, is right at the other end of the scale, where the rest of the pack will go and hunt, and they will bring food back for the alpha female right in the beginning, and then for the pups, all of the group, not just the female, but the rest of the pack would bring food back to the young ones at the den. In her case, she would go feeding many nights, foraging around, and if there's a big carcass, obviously lions killed something, she would go there with the rest of the clan and then come back to the den herself. Well observed there, Elise. You are asking how well fed the female is, or whether she's had a meal recently. She was looking a bit thin. She was actually not, I mean, not thin as in unhealthy. In fact, this specific female, often the alpha females can look a little bit sort of rough, for lack of a better word, because quite often they are, the biggest, and they've had to fight sometimes for the dominance and things like that. So they can be a bit scarred sometimes. But this specific female, even though we recognize it from a scar on her rump, she's in very good condition. So she might not be sort of full at the moment, but yesterday morning when we saw her, she had eaten the night before. And I know that Eugene, actually, who's looking after many of our technical things, which is the sign for one of the parks or one of the lodges up here, Buffalo area. Eugene said he saw her walking past with a bone in her mouth, probably to take back to the youngsters more. But that would obviously suggest that she got that somewhere last night, so they would have fed last night. So she's in good shape. But also she's rearing a small one at the moment, so a lot of her energy goes into milk production. Tigers have got some of the highest, richest milk of all mammals, so that would obviously take quite a bit of energy if you want from her. Right, we're going to take it easy here, just head along. What you can see is a very long straight road. This is the northern boundary of the area we drive in, although it's all open ecologically. And see what we find en route, maybe some general game, and then work it up towards that leopard again later on. We're on a little break at the moment, and just to update you guys, obviously we're busy rehearsing for Big Cat Week. Big Cat Week is a very exciting event for all of us on many levels with Nat Geo Wild North America, and that's starting Friday night for you if you are from North America. Saturday morning early for us. That'll be the first prime time drive. Saturday morning our time, the sunrise safari, which obviously is evening time for those of you guys in the North, South America, Canada time zone. But in that, obviously, we're rehearsing some things like the ad breaks, for instance. So at the moment, we're in that. Just to explain this a little bit, you'll notice sometimes how we talk, the welcome back, see you after the break, that kind of thing. But while we're in that, I'm going to continue on. We had some wildebeest earlier, and seeing as I'm on the vehicle with wildebeest, which is our nickname for VM, we're going to go look for them for a bit. Jamie's still with the leopard, having a nap. Enjoy it over there. We will see you back here in a bit.
Now, Mvula is still faster. I was about to say he was fast asleep. He's just lifted his head up. Now, a little bit earlier, he looked across in our direction, and I was struck by, I think, probably the most incredible pair of eyes that I have seen while I've been working on Djuma. He has the most incredible, I guess I'd describe them as pale blue eyes. At some point soon, I'm sure he will look back across to us. He really is an exceptionally interesting looking leopard. He's got tattered ears, a sign of his age and a sign of the experiences that he's been through in his life. And I love slightly tattered leopards. I think it adds a dash of character to them, because you know that each and every little injury has come with some story to tell, and they lead very difficult lives out here. Mvula as a male, and as a male just sort of not quite reaching the end of his prime, but getting close, that horizon is approaching, he will have his work cut out for him. He's going to be patrolling an area that is at least twice the size of the territory that, say, Karula patrols, because he is a male. They tend to hold much bigger territories, so he'll be moving from place to place, constantly marking, calling, reinforcing his dominance in this area, and then of course attending to the various females that he does overlap with. We know for certain that he has mated with Karula in the past. He's probably mated with her fairly recently in the most recent estrus cycle. So he could well be the father of the next set of cubs due to be born. I've mentioned that he is very hungry looking. His hip bones are sticking out ever so slightly. Looks like he could use a big meal, but he's currently quite content to rest himself in the shade, right sitting down below us in the sand and enjoying the relief from the heat of the day. Now, Dave, who's watching in Florida, you were wondering when big cats hunt, what sort of time of day, and is there any set pattern to it? Well, for the most part, leopards and lions are nocturnal hunters. That being said, I have seen more leopards moving about in the middle of the day than the textbooks would ever predict that you will see, and they're opportunists. So if, for example, some unsuspecting Nyala started coming down towards him and he's got the protection of the bank that he has, there's absolutely no reason why he wouldn't hunt in the middle of the day. But predominantly, most of their hunting happens at night, especially for lions, because they've got roughly about, I don't know, 80 kilograms over a leopard, for the males even more, and that means that they overheat really, really rapidly. They get too hot very quickly, so hunting in the middle of the day is a bit tricky for them. You generally see them only really hunting at night, when they can make the use of the advantage of their incredible night vision. Cheetah, on the other hand, are completely diurnal. It means that they're not in competition with the two big threats out here to them, the leopard and the lion, and they'll be out in the early morning or the late afternoon hunting at the same time as we see the wild dogs hunt. He's lifted his head up, he's just looking around him. Out across the dam. We are still sitting with Mvula. We were discussing a little bit about his hunting techniques and whether or not he would be heading out during sort of roundabout now. It is starting to get a bit cooler, and although it's been very hot in the sun, the wind has created a nice cool chill factor. He just shifted around ever so slightly there, and I always imagine that it's like when you sleep in a hot room or something and you flip the pillow over that you're resting your head on to get to the cooler side. You very often see leopards do that, just that little shift around, find a more comfortable spot that hasn't yet been warmed up. And I can imagine that that is the perfect, he's found the perfect tail rest as well on that ridge of sand. Now, I've said that his name is Mvula, which is, or has the meaning of rain, and Sean, you were wondering who names them and why it's always a traditional African name. Well, Sean, by the way, is watching from Secunda, which is in South Africa. Sean, it's generally an honor that is passed. The naming practices have changed over the last few years. It was typically something that was conferred as an honor to one of the longest serving guides, somebody who's proved themselves in the field. It then went to the person who first found the cubs. And once the cubs reach adulthood or reach about 1 year old, then that ranger and his tracker get the honor of naming. It's now become something more democratic, and I know that it is voted on between guides as to which name to include or which name to name the leopard. It's not always with a traditional African name. There is, of course, Shadow, and Shadow is literally the shadows that she moves about him. Shadow is the Karula's daughter. I'm trying to think of other names. For the most part, though, it is tradition to name the leopards after the languages that were originally, or the inhabitants that would have been moving about in this land originally. There is something innately beautiful about the name Mvula as well. He's not going anywhere, and so neither are we. And I believe that Scott has found himself in a hole, and I think we should go and find out why.
Now we're going to do something a little bit different, and you're basically a warthog now. This is warthog level that you are being exposed to, and imagine how scary it would be walking through this thick bush at that eye level, and then all of a sudden this pops out. Ah!
Hello everyone, and welcome to the aardvark hole. I'm going to jump out of it immediately because it's extremely uncomfortable in there. But what's interesting is how deep this hole is. Come and have a look. My whole body fitted inside, not comfortably, but I'm going to just shine my flashlight down in there, and you can see a perfectly well dug hole. That is probably about 1.5 meters down. And as you can see, I could make sure that there was no spiders or snakes or scorpions in there before I jumped down. And it was a good opportunity to climb into a hole for you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but most of the holes are too scary to climb in because you can't be sure what may be lurking inside. Now these aardvark's burrows create wonderful homes for certain animals, like the hyena you've been viewing with Peter at their den site. There's a strong chance that it was aardvark that were the initial animals to burrow into that termite mound, making it easier for the hyenas. Look, the hyenas can dig for themselves, but not nearly as well as the aardvark can. And interestingly, there's a few more excavations around here. Haven't had a look at them yet because as soon as I saw that hole, I climbed into it. But let me just get the sand out my shoes quickly. But you can see another hole here, not very active, and that one I can also see all the way to the bottom too. Really deep, and isn't it remarkable how powerful these animals are to be able to excavate all that way in search of termites, their main food source. Now, I just heard a dung beetle fly over at high speed. They're kind of like jumbo jets. They make a loud noise and they're quite easy to see flying around. You can often see them flying towards you and you have to dodge them because, again, they don't have the best flight control. The piloting test to become a dung beetle pilot is not very difficult. And one was flying off in the direction of James's tent. It's probably not going to make it there, but he does have one there and he'd like to show it to you. Enjoy.
Hello everybody, and Scott was nearly dive bombed by one of these. I think he's being a little unfair by saying that they're not very good flyers. Look at this fellow. He, I think, is probably a Mrs. actually, Mrs. Dung Beetle. There's probably an egg in there. What she's trying to do now is dig a hole in my hand where she can bury her ball. There is an egg inside it, like I say. She's become married, mated already. Her husband would have seduced her with a pile of dung. Imagine that happened in human society. And what we're going to do is release this fellow onto the ground, or a lady onto the ground, because she's been pushing around this dung ball in my hand for some time. And the feeling of it, I just want to try and describe the feeling of these incredible, you can see that digging part of her head that she uses to scrape dung and then dig a hole in the ground, and she's using the sun to orientate. There, that's what I wanted to show you. She turns around on top of the ball and orientates using the sun. They use the polarization of the light apparently, and there are even some species that can navigate using the Milky Way. There she goes. She's headed consistently in a sort of southerly direction. There we go. And she's going south again. Let's see where she goes this time. Well, I mean, she's going nowhere at the moment. Right. Let's disturb her slightly and see what she does. She's picked up exactly where she's going. She knows she's going south. I'm going to try and orientate her north. Oh, she's not being fooled. There we go. Turns around and goes south again. Isn't that unbelievable? How incredible is that? Let's do it once more, and then I'm going to put her down because I think we're being a little unfair. Right, now she's facing the wrong way. There she orientates completely to the correct way and goes south. That's amazing. Let's put her down to head. Let's put her down to go south here. Off she goes. How magnificent is that? There goes. That's called a plum dung beetle, and you can see from the beautiful colour on it. Going due south, the plum dung beetle, Madam Plum Dung Beetle, is going to go and dig herself a hole, bury that, and next season I think the larvae will hatch into another beautiful plum dung beetle. Now, we do have a treat for you. Let's head across to the picture being formed by the ever-improving, astonishingly, it's amazing he can get any better, Drone Commander Andrew Francis, and we'll take you over to him, and he's going to hopefully go and find us some wildebeest. At the moment he's looking straight at us, of course. Now there's Graham Wallington. Wave, Graham. There we go. And Hayden Turner. Wave, Hayden. Yeah, that's it. And Louise Pavitt, all trying to hide behind the tent. We found them though, didn't we? Well done, Andrew. Good job. Now we're going to go and look at some wildebeest, and just keep an eye. Every day this plain that we call quarantine clearings will change in colour slightly. It will become slightly greener. There's a nice layer of water underneath the surface, so the grass seeds will be drinking that thirstily and starting to grow, hopefully, and greening this up nicely for the grazers like the impala and the wildebeest, who are going to now start having their babies. Andrew, bottom right of corner. There we go. There he is. Well done, Andrew. He's really getting pretty good at this now. There's a herd of beautiful wildebeest, and they're probably heading down to try and find a puddle of water somewhere to drink. It's about that time of the evening. They'll also be looking for the choicest grasses. And although they're not nearly as selective as, say, something like a duiker or a steenbok, they will be pretty selective about the areas in which they graze. And to the uninitiated, I suppose, it would be very difficult to tell whether they were being selective or not. But they will select grasses for their taste, and that's based on the soils where they grow, and also based on the different grass species, and of course also on the height. You'll often see pictures of them in East Africa with herds of zebra following or just in front of them. And the zebra eat a slightly different length of grass, and that's generally why they move like that. But look at the way they interweave between the different trees there. Definitely a pathfinder in front, I would say. Probably, I would suggest that is probably the oldest cow in this herd. There'll be some youngsters in the middle, probably some young bulls behind. And what we're hoping this drone shot is going to show us eventually is the different interactions that we can't see when they're on the vehicle. Now look, they've stopped. And I'm just trying to notice if there's any kind of defensive position. This is just wonderful to be able to see this kind of angle. Let's see how they fan. Where are the youngsters? Does look to me like the youngsters. Top of your screen there, the one closest to the top of your screen looks to be a youngster to me. And I think that they are being kept slightly away from the front of the herd. Probably two adult cows out front. There may be, it's unlikely there would be a bull with them. The bull normally will set up a territory on his own. And this is just magnificent. There we go, there's a bull coming up behind there, a couple more cows. And I think if we start to spend extended periods like this watching these herds, we're going to get some fascinating insights. And that's indeed one of the reasons we've got this drone. Also, just last thing here, bottom of your screen now, I think there's a very pregnant wildebeest there. And certainly if you see the impala from the air at the moment, they really have the most incredibly swollen fat bellies, all just about to give birth. And you can see why. The earth is starting to green slightly, the grass is coming up, and that's extremely necessary, of course, for all of the new mothers to be in the herbivore world, the impala and the wildebeest and Inyala and kudu and all the others that are about to give birth now. Right, from the herbivores, magnificent shot, well done Andrew. Let's go straight across to Buffelshoek Dam with glorious Mvula, my favorite leopard.
From the air back into the ground, and still with a sleepy Mvula who hasn't done much apart from to shift position so that he's now facing away from us. Now that does give us a slight view of his left hand side, but still not clear enough to see if that porcupine quill is still embedded in his neck or not. I can't reposition without risking losing all of our viewers, which I would hate to do, so we're going to stay here for now and hopefully he turns around and gives us a slightly better angle to work with. Big hello to Gracie, who is one of our regular viewers. Gracie is 8 years old. Gracie, you wanted to know, how do I know that he's hungry and whether or not I can hear his tummy rumbling. Now, I'm not close enough to hear his tummy rumbling, but I'm sure that it is. I'm just looking at how thin he is. His hip bones are sticking out a little bit. And usually when a leopard has just eaten, they eat so much that they get that big round tummy. Remember when you were watching Karula the last few days when she was sitting on quarantine clearings, she had that huge round belly. Mvula, the leopard that we're watching now, he doesn't have that enormous round belly. I think he's going to go hunting soon. You were wondering why he hasn't eaten, and I think that's just because he hasn't managed to catch himself some food yet. And he'll probably try again tonight when it's a little bit cooler and he's got the advantage of darkness so that he can sneak up on things. But for now, he's not terribly hungry. He's definitely not starving, and he's quite happy to spend some time lazing about in the sand before he has to go out looking for food. And I'm sure that when he does, we might even be seeing him tomorrow morning with a very round, very full belly, or maybe even tonight, who knows. Definitely a very strong possibility. The wind is blowing out here, which also makes for really useful hunting conditions. It means that the animals that he's going to try and snack on are going to be distracted. Their senses aren't as acute as they usually are. The wind distracts from what they can hear and what they can smell. Interesting question. Now, we saw Mvula go down towards the dam and have a quick drink. And Mr. Moustache, you were wondering if leopards dislike water as much as house cats do. And the answer is no, I think that they don't. I still think they're quite finicky about having muddy paws. And if they can avoid it, if you watch a leopard go down to the water's edge to drink, he'll try and find the sort of least muddy patch where he can go and access the water without getting his feet dirty. But I don't think there's as much consternation and fear around water. I've seen leopards swim before. They can swim. They do occasionally have to cross rivers when there's floods. And of course, they can't really go inside when it's raining. Or at least I hope they never go inside when it's raining. That's definitely something we would rather avoid. And they'll have to make do with the shelter of trees. So for the most part, they're not quite as fearful of water as other cats are. And I've seen lions swim as well. And of course, all animals out here are capable of swimming to some degree, apart from the hippo, somewhat bizarrely. The hippo must be one of the only mammals out here that has no swimming ability at all. Also, that being said, come to think of it, one thing that we did do where I used to work was we worked a lot with Panthera and camera traps, and we put them up all over the place. And the first year we did this was in 2013, and that was a very, very rainy season. It was actually a flood year. We had some tremendous amounts of water flowing past the reserve. The reserve I was at had quite a lot more in the way of very broad drainage lines that actually became flowing rivers, and we put a lot of the camera traps up around there. And we had more than one picture, spectacular pictures, of leopards leaping across easily stretches of water that must have been about 6 meters, 7 meters, and you could just see how perfect and effortless it looked, even in a still frame, launching themselves across the water to avoid getting their feet wet. Well, that could be more of a mud thing more than anything else. And of course, camera traps, for those of you who are unfamiliar, the camera trap is a motion sensor. It has a motion sensor attached to the camera, so that when anything moves past it, it triggers the sensor and the camera snaps a picture. And you can change the settings, you can take lots of pictures, you can take few pictures, you can take videos. Now out here, the biggest difficulty when setting up a camera trap around the place is there are things that Peter was sitting with, those spotted hyenas, and they come with a considerable degree of curiosity, and they like to explore the world around them, particularly things that smell like people. They like to explore with their teeth. And it's very easy to lose a camera trap if you haven't placed them high enough, or you haven't got a very solid metal box with them. Now the Panthera traps we had to put on the ground so that we could get good views of the leopards, which meant that we lost a couple of them to, they were very well protected in metal boxes, and they were cable tied with metal strands of wire. So they didn't go walkabout too far, but we did lose a few, some to the floods and then some to elephants, and one particularly spectacular picture of a hippo walking away with a camera trap in its mouth. So it's not just hyenas that get curious. Elephants in particular seem to enjoy using them to scratch their knees, and then the camera trap would then sit facing the sky, and we'd get lots of very pretty pictures of insects flying over and birds. There's something of an art to putting up camera traps. It's important to think very carefully about which kind of path you're going to put them up on. Now I imagine if we set one up here around Buffelshoek Dam, we would get some very interesting pictures, and I'm sure that this leopard that we're looking at the moment, I'm fairly certain he would feature quite heavily on the pictures that we get. I can hear a pearl-spotted owlet calling in the distance, and they're one of the few owls that you'll start to hear calling this time of night and then sort of first thing in the morning. We find ourselves still with a very peaceful scene, and Mvula shifting about ever so slightly on the sand. Buffelshoek Dam is the perfect place to spend an afternoon. What I'm going to try and do is move around to the other side so that we can get a view of Mvula's face, and while I do that, I believe that there is a pretty bug in the tent that they would love to show you, so we'll see you very shortly.
Everybody, that is not Tebbs, that is not me, that is not Andrew Francis, that is a spotted tortoise beetle. Isn't it just magnificent? Golden green colours with black spots on it, a bit like the coat of the magnificent leopard that you've been watching. The only noticeably interesting thing about the green or spotted tortoise beetle is that there are a few different kinds of them. There is one there. That's the one we think this one is. There's another one there, and a couple of others. And what they do is they eat quite a lot of plant material, flowers. Ipomoea, morning glory, is the particular favorite of the spotted leaf beetle, at least of the spotted tortoise beetle, but just so beautiful to look at them. So you've got a nice look at him there. Now, the other thing I want to show you is something, and please, I'm going to reiterate this for our young viewers. It's wonderful to have you along. Don't always do what we do out here. Remember that we're quite well trained. Well, some of us are quite well trained, and what we do is we do pick things up with our hands. This is a piece of fur that came from the impala that Karula was eating just over there not too long ago, and it's a pretty smelly, and you don't know what kind of bacteria and that sort of thing would be on it. So if you're a youngster, in fact even if you're an adult, don't go knocking about the bush picking things up and then sort of putting your hands to your face without washing your hands very carefully too. And also remember, you often see me eating quite a lot of things out here, and it's very important that you don't go into the wild and eat things without knowing exactly what they are. So this is the hare, and as I was discussing today, we looked at those carrion beetles earlier on. And those carrion beetles had eaten away the dung, I think, of a hyena. They'd taken away everything except the hair. And this is hair that's probably either been coughed up by Karula, so they lick the hair off the animal, just like if you see your cat at home licking its fur, they do the same thing with their prey here. So they'll lick the impala, they open up a gap to get their teeth into, and then they tear it open. And that licking, their tongues are like sandpaper. Licking means that they will eventually swallow quite a lot of hair. They must cough that up, and then it'll end up on the floor underneath the tree in which the leopard has been sitting. It's totally indigestible. Almost nothing out here is able to digest keratin and the other bits and pieces that are in hair. The noticeable exception being something like the moth that is growing in our old pal, the buffalo there. I think we should call him Grey Skull. He looks like that character 1982 or so. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please don't worry. It's unimportant. But those moths that live in that skull are able to digest keratin. Otherwise, very little else will. It will eventually then go down into the bush and become part of the nutrients that will feed the grasses and the plants and join the nutrient cycle that is such an important part of what goes on here. Right, so that's the hare from the impala that was eaten by Karula a little while ago. Now the leopard you've been looking at, now we will go back to just now. I just wanted to reiterate that this leopard that we've been talking about, Karula, produced two wonderful sons by Mvula. And it was just, they left the area as I got here, which was amazing, and I've seen them once or twice, and I'm hoping desperately that Karula and Mvula are going to meet up, because Karula has been mating with Tingana off on Arathusa, and it would seem that those 3 or 4 mating times, I mean it's almost 4 weeks of mating, have not resulted in a pregnancy, we don't think. Now hopefully she'll meet up again with Mvula, who's more her age. They're about 11, they're both 11 years old, and so they're more suited to each other perhaps than Tingana and Karula are, because Tingana of course is younger than Karula, but that's okay in the leopard world. So I'm hoping they'll meet up again and perhaps produce wonderful offspring like they did before. Right, let's just have one last look at this tortoise beetle. I think we have a couple of signal issues with the Mvula at the moment, so let's have one last look at this tortoise beetle on the microscope, and I'll try and get a little bit closer into it. And what I'm going to put next to it is a burnet. Now, we've seen a lot of these burnets, and I'm sure the guides out in the field, well, I know they are, they're showing them to you all the time, but we hadn't had one under the microscope before because they're almost always alive, which is a good thing for them, and they also knock about the place at a great speed, so it's quite difficult to hold them still. And this chap here is the fire grill burnet, and what I want to do is just open him up a little bit. Well, if we come back to me, I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm going to peel away his wing. There we go, peeled away, and we'll put him under the microscope again, and you can see there, look at that incredible color. It looks just like the grill looks just like the grill on a barbecue, or what we call a braai here. All right, so from a Burnett, let us go across to Peter. Peter is doing, well, he's driving around exploring the wonder that is this incredible little patch of land that we're able to call home. I'll see you just now.
Well guys, welcome back this side. Lots of interesting things happening. The leopard's sleeping for now, but we literally just spotted these guys, and you know, if you spot something interesting in the bush, you have to have a look. That's in the front there, you all know Scott, John on the camera. They found Mvula earlier, actually, in the beginning of the drive when they were tracking this area. And I want to just show you again, some of you will remember them, just behind. Hello, Bright. Bright in the front, Jeffrey with a black Nat Geo cap in the back. Jeffrey, nice to see you. Guys, these guys are great. And together, they're going to be helping us. Give this, guys, look at this. And you're gonna think it's a dung beetle ball. Actually, let me put it down there for you, view. It's perfectly round. We should give this.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Peter's picture's frozen. He's looking ball, probably a dung beetle of some sort. Now, Tebs, I need you to get in right close here, and we're going to be very careful. This is the most fascinating thing that Steph has found us. There, he is called a flea beetle. Now, what I want you to look at is how thick. See him jump there. He looks like he's got the same legs as a grasshopper, and to a large extent he does. He's a jumper. But the most fascinating thing about this chap, and I'm not going to try and put him under, oh, you know, I probably could get him under the microscope. I'll try quickly. The most interesting thing about him is that his larvae are highly toxic. Now what that means, sorry, we've got various communications coming from the final control. What that means, of course, is that the larvae are used by the Bushmen. There we go. We've got a nice picture of him now. Let's quickly hop. Amazing. Tebs, maybe just film the screen here. There we go. There we go. Amazing stuff. Oh, sorry. No, the light's not good. Okay, let's not worry about that for too much. It keeps going. Looks like a little grub, a little worm. It's highly toxic from the food that they eat. Not so much in this area, but certainly up towards the Kalahari. And the Bushmen, who hunt with poison arrows, used to take the larvae, squeeze it onto their arrowheads, and then shoot whatever they were. They weren't kind of these enormous long bows that you read about where people were shooting at great distances. They're tiny little bows. And it's just into the animal that they're going to kill, and that was enough to weaken them, enough for the Bushmen to get in there with their spears and kill something like a kudu, which would then last them a good long time. So that is the flea beetle, not the flea, yes, the flea beetle. I'm going to lock him in here. So we don't have any other feed at the moment because Gari repeater is down. So I'm going to just continue showing you what I think are some of the most amazingly fascinating things in the bush. Right, let's have a look now at something that Louise found us. Again, Louise has been running around here finding all sorts of interesting dung. I think she called this zebra dung, but I'm not convinced myself. I think that this might in fact be warthog dung. Let's open it up and have a look. Ooh, look, Tebs, can you see? It's been eaten out by termites. Now, the termites will come and harvest this kind of dung, go and bury it under the ground, eat it there, and it'll be particularly delicious to them, not so much to us. I think this is actually zebra. Compare it just now with some impala dung. Remember, they have a totally different kind of, no, we can't put it under the microscope, I'm afraid the feed is just not coming. The program keeps freezing, which is deeply irksome, deeply irritating indeed. Okay, we won't worry about that too much for now. Okay, this is it. You've got my face and Tebs on camera. Okay, so let's have a look here, Tebs. You're going to have to be microscope as well as cameraman, and we can see that it is not nearly as well digested as something like an impala or wildebeest, and that's because a zebra, of course, is not a ruminant. It is a hindgut fermenter. And that means that it eats, it eats grass obviously, but it doesn't. And for those of you who don't know, your appendix sits at the base of your large intestine, sort of around here. In a zebra, that thing is about that big. And that is where all of this digestion takes place. It's called a cecum, and in that cecum there are a whole lot of bacteria, and it helps to digest the food that they eat. And it's not nearly as efficient a system as the ruminants have, but it is certainly very useful, especially when conditions are bad. When conditions are bad, a zebra has a really better time than something like an impala, because there's no limit to the amount that it can eat. Right, I'm going to try and hook this thing up once more. And thank you so much, Donna, for calling me the perfect mad lab professor. I think that's a compliment. Thank you very much, Donna. That is very kind of you. We're just trying to get our microphone's feed back up, but alas, it doesn't seem to be happening. I think it has to come from Gary. Here we have a feather. And this is a very similar feather to what we were looking at the other day. What I think it is. Tebs, where's the best way do you get a reflection off it? There. Here we go. A bit of blue, but black and white largely. And I think that's from something like a Jacobin or striped or Lavallian's cuckoo. That's a flight feather. Isn't that amazing? Look at the beautiful colors. And held together. When we get our microscope back, I'll show you how they're all held together. There's an amazing array of barbs that go onto the place. Well, they fit on to the filaments. Right. Ah, hooray! Let's go across to Peter. I'm starting to run out of things to show, in case the other feeds don't come back. See you just now. Oh, he's gone down. Okay. All right, never mind. Let's carry on with me. We will get this right, I promise you, everybody. Okay, let's have a look here. This is actually quite interesting. And what you'll find here, we couldn't find out what kind of dung it was. Steph and I, we put our minds to it, our combined intellectual capital, and we came up with the fact that instead of being dung, it is in fact the stomach contents of the impala that was eaten. So you can see there, that not that white bit, just that this kind of grassy bit, that's partially digested. Karula's fangs a little while back. That's all I have to tell you about that. Then this little piece here is a shell from a reptile's egg, and we don't. Oh, there we go. Let's go and have a look there. So I'll tell you about this egg sac, not egg sac, egg shell a little while later. We're going to go across to Andrew, who can't hear any radio. Andrew, are you ready? Quarantine clearings. Oh, a mercifully brilliant view, much better than the view of me with my gangster hat on, staring at not a great deal. Right, let's have a look, see if we can find anything unusual about this impala herd. They're quite widely spread. They're only widely spread like that because they're in a clearing, so they're able to see what is going on around them. They wouldn't be that widely spread, I suspect, if they were in a woodland area. You can see impala, they will browse when they have to, but as with elephants, they'd much rather be grazing, so they're onto the grass there. It's just popped up as a result of the last wonderful rains that we had. Really wonderful. There's one. Andrew, whoa, a second. Andrew, there was one there with its legs spread-eagled apart. Did you see that? No, it was probably just the loo, but we must keep a strong eye out to check if any of them aren't about to perhaps give birth. Of course, they're all about to give birth. And in the shadow, here we've got, there we go. Let's try and lower down a bit there, Andrew. There seemed to be some affection going on there. That's quite interesting. Looks like two pregnant females to me. Of course, the elephants, of course, are treat birth as an amazing celebration, just like human beings do. The impala not so much. Well, they're perhaps just less demonstrative than the elephants are. We're not really sure what their emotions are like. Look at that picture. Andrew's basically landed on the back of one of them and they haven't reacted at all. It's fantastic. Now they're looking up at the bumblebee that's looking at them. Isn't that amazing? They've just got so used to it so quickly. It's wonderful. Really unusual about their interactions at the moment. I cannot. There's a ram going off to the side. Now he, of course, is going to make himself scarce in the next little while, because to be lurking about with all the ewes and their babies is going to be a noisy thing for him. Not only is it going to be a noisy thing for him, it's going to be a dangerous thing for him, because when these ewes start to drop their lambs, and that's going to happen any day now, they become a target straight away for predators. Predators can come moving around. Of them will make it through their first year. All right. Apparently, we have a game drive out that is now broadcasting some kind of usable signal. I'm looking at the back end of Jamie. Her, I see. Okay, we'll head across to her, and I will see you a little bit later. We'll try and find something else to show you.
As I trundle down Drakensberg Road in my oversized hat, I have just spotted a grey hornbill, which I'm going to try and show you, demonstrating perfectly its association with dwarf mongoose. Here's our grey hornbill. Probably still on some of your bird lists, but maybe for new viewers, something you'd like to add: that is a grey hornbill, quite clearly distinguishable from the yellow and red-billed counterparts by the grey beak. Now, just a quick explanation as to why we are not still with Mvula. Never fear, he is still where we left him. And because my signal doesn't seem to be too great, I am there. We've decided that Peter will go and take over my spot in that sighting, and we'll carry on and find other amazing mongooses. I'm going to try shift forward so that Brian can get a better view. They seem to be nice and relaxed. And I think that's why that hornbill is hanging around here as well, because they're providing him. That's not going to work. We'll go backwards again. There's a whole group of them foraging around, searching through thick grass. It's amazing how much more dense the vegetation has become just after a little bit of rain. These little things that we get to see, like this Franklin, to me, like it might be a Koki Franklin, is beautiful with his orange head, which makes it, I think that makes it a male. I'm having a momentary brain freeze here. Hold on one moment. That we don't always get to see. Yes, it does make it a male. I was right. I was just having a moment of self-doubt. Beautiful looking Franklin. It's not a bird that we get to see that often. There's the female behind it. And like all of the other little birds out here, it's also breeding time for these guys as well. And there'll be a bird species that very closely relies on camouflage as a way of hiding their nests on the ground. There you go, perfect perfectly easily identifiable with their orange heads, the female with a slight cresting, but the males have that orange head and then the barring on the chest. I started off this sunset and we got a bit distracted because Scott was having that amazing, exciting experience on foot. But Mauricio, you were mentioning the yellow-billed oxpeckers, which we don't often get to see, and I was so excited because it's now the third time that I've seen them on exactly the same buffalo. So it's, I guess, my fun fact for the day, and I'm going to try every drive. I'm going to try and present you all with new and all learn together. It was my first realization that those oxpeckers are actually on the same buffalo days in a row, and Brian says he's seen them while he's been out filming with James as well, also on that same group of buffalo. How incredible is that? Now, I'm guessing that means that they're not nesting that particular pair, because they're not flying back to a nesting tree every night. They're going to bed in a tree close to wherever the buffalo settle down at night, and then it's a piece of fascinating knowledge that we would never have known if we didn't do this every single day. It's one of the wondrous parts of our live safaris, including these little Cokie Franklin. That's awesome news. What else we can spot in the grass? Fun facts, because really that's terribly cliched. Need something new and exciting. So every single drive that I do, I'm going to find out new information and share it with you, knowledge piece by piece and bit by bit. But I need an interesting name for that little idea. So if you can come up with anything cool that you think of as a title, we can start playing around with that. And of course, the wonderful thing about having diversity of subjects, and we can create broader discussions around that. Now, I'm not sure how many of you would ever have guessed that oxpeckers, those birds we see every single day, that for an entire week, flying stick shot up from behind the wheel. That was quite a surprise. We can identify those two yellow-billed, and yes, it's true, I can't tell the difference between one yellow-billed oxpecker and the next, but I think it's highly likely, because they're a pair, because they're in the same area, and because it's such an unusual bird for us to see, I think it's highly likely it's the same birds. Now, they are a little bit bigger and a little bit stockier than our, you mean that they tend to target larger animals more, at least in this area, because larger animals will carry bigger ticks, which means more food. But the other yellow-billed oxpeckers that I've seen in my life are usually around impala, so I'm not sure. It's just an interesting topic to think about. The buffalo also, I suppose only because I've been looking for the yellow-bills, I've been watching and looking at the identifying features, and of course every buffalo is completely unique. So, in its own way, the yellow-billed oxpeckers have helped us learn about buffalo behavior as well, because they've taught us that those particular duggar boys like to move along twin dams and in quite a small area around it. Mainly, of course, because there's plenty of groundwater for them to be wallowing about. I'm now, of course, hugely aware of the size of my cap. I know that James's fashion advice is what's led to my other hat, and unfortunately that's had to have been retired for the moment, just because the brim isn't quite wide enough. It's so We certainly apologize for the very brief attack of the gremlins that we had, but we are back up and running once again, and just enjoying a moment of peace to appreciate the beautiful uniqueness of a black and white horse in a world of vibrant greens and burnished reds and golds that we live in. The fascinating fact that they are the only creature in terms of the herbivores out here that demonstrates that unique colouring, and something that creates such a picturesque scene in the sunset light. Tail swishing gently. It's looks like a male and a female, as well as a sub-adult male. And the sub-adult male is the one closest to us. Oh, perfect. 3 identical poses. Reveling in the fact that there are fresh green grass shoots for them to nibble on or urinate on, depending on which zebra you happen to be looking at. Hello, beautiful. There's very few animals out here that are as picturesque as zebra. And these, of course, are the plain zebra. I always knew them as the Burchell zebra, but they're now known as the plain zebra, with those delicate shadow stripes, which are showing up so beautifully at the moment. In between the thick black ones, they've got thin sort of brown strips. I'm going to leave the zebra to go about their evening business and head off and see if I can figure out where Karula disappeared off to sometime this morning. In the meantime, Peter is with another leopard, Mvula, who is still right where we left him. So let's have a look at the view of him.
Well, just as it is great to get down for your first drink like this buffalo, they just popped out here seconds ago, it is even greater, or maybe as great, that we can have you back on safari with us. Some technical things we're busy changing and looking at. We've been sitting here. Jamie had to leave earlier due to bad signal, and then we had to sort a few things out, but the good news is, and I don't have to tell you because you're experiencing it, we've got you back. And very interesting, shows you how well camouflage works. Look at that. Even the Franklins are excited. The birds you can hear in the background. This is Rain. Mvula is his name. In Tonga or Shangaan, Mvula means rain. I don't actually know the history for this. In fact, I might even, let's see how this sighting progresses. I have a picture on this camera I've got here that I took of Mvula, I forgot the date now, 2009 somewhere. So 6 years ago, Mvula was just becoming the dominant male here, and one of my favorite leopard pictures to date was of him drinking from a little puddle that you get after rain, like we're seeing at the moment, in the road on Impala Road, close to Impala Plains. And the reason I got the picture is I gave Graham a present some time ago, a long time ago actually, in 2009, of that picture, and I photographed it a while back on his wall just for ID purposes. So Mvula was a leopard that I was just getting to know in his sort of early stages of dominance, when he was just moving in. That's when Mafufunyan was still active or dominant here. Mafufunyan was the previous dominant male, well, some time ago. Also the father of Shadow and Tandi, most likely. So I knew Mvula a little bit as he came in here, when he was still very pretty. You know, young males, when they're big enough to become dominant, sort of, let's say, age 4, maybe 5 at the most, they don't carry as many scars as they do towards the end of their reign. Now, And I mean rain as in dominance, not rain as in mvula. So this guy has probably got another year or two. He's been getting lots of pressure from Tingana, but that's usual. Dominant males not only have to compete and keep other males away, they also have to sort of jostle, if you want, or compete for territory with neighboring males. And that's not normally a direct confrontation like I want to take over your area, but it is a little bit of pushing and shoving for space, often sort of influenced by female movement as well. But what a setting. We've got the leopard sleeping here in the sort of the sand on the edge of the water. We've got 4 buffalo there at the background now, having a little mud wallow, and I've just got a game driver that wants to come in. Let me just chat to them quickly, standing by. Yeah, FM, beautiful sighting, couple of Dagga boys here now as well. You can just pull in when you see me, we're live at the moment. Best view is from the sort of sundowner spot side. Copy that, see you here. That's Vernon, also a good friend. And guys, always lovely to get the questions, so keep them coming. Thought he's getting up, but it was just a fly literally that annoyed him. Now flies would just be annoying but not a problem to them. Wolfgang, Tuck, for your question, appreciate it. Wolfgang's from Sweden, just asking what's a leopard's greatest enemy. Now unfortunately I have to say this because it is the important answer to realize, but the most dangerous enemy for most wild animals would be inevitably man, either directly in terms of, you know, harming them or doing things with them, shooting them, whatever, but indirectly also habitat encroachment would probably be the second biggest danger, and that would obviously link into man's activity. But Wolfgang, I'm sure you're also to an extent referring to the natural enemies these cats will have, and for leopard that would probably be lion and or hyena in terms of other species. And those cats, you know, big lions or hyenas would kill leopard because they're competition, they compete for the same food. In terms of what kills the most leopard, that would be other leopard, especially in the case of male leopard. This guy, Mvula, most likely the reason why he would one day pass away or die would most likely be from either directly getting killed by another male leopard competing for his area, or indirectly being injured enough and then pushed out of his area by another male that takes over, and those injuries often at older age can then be what inevitably kills him. So to summarize that for you, Wolfgang, biggest enemy would be other big predators, leopard, hyena, lion, hyena. Probably the cause of most leopard deaths, especially male leopard, would be other leopard, but ultimately that would be far outnumbered by the human element. But at the same time, you could also then say that what's leopard's greatest friend, and that would certainly be any or all of us sitting here right now. And by that token I mean that we might put humans in the bad position of being an enemy, but we are also leopard's greatest friend. We can help them survive by having beautiful areas like this, by understanding them better, by educating other people about them. So I do also have to say that. Guys, I'm loving the questions. This leopard could get active any second. Now we've got 1 or 2 more questions. Keep them coming. We're going to sit with him, listen to the Franklins, watch the buffalo, and just enjoy the evening approaching. Hello Cecilia, how are you? Just commenting there on Mvula maybe looking a little bit thin. Whether he is thin or not, has he been eating or not, has he been active or not? Just look at that. What a setting. In Africa, leopard at the waterhole, buffalo at the waterhole, get that magic color on the horizon that's starting even though we're looking away from the sunset. Cecilia, we're just asking or hypothesizing whether perhaps the leopard could be a bit thin because he's been mating. So we're enjoying this just as much as you. This is such a cool view. We're sitting on a wall here. Cecilia, let me just finish up your question. I'm terrible at interrupting myself. Yeah, I think he's a bit thin, but he's thin. Put it this way, he's in good shape at the moment. I would guess that he's eaten maybe 2-3 days ago. It's possible that he has been mating, not with Karula, because we've been with Karula most of last week, but maybe with Thandi would be in his area. Other possible females further south as well. So he's been active, but I think he's just active now in terms of scent marking, which is why he's here. See, look at his tail. There was a fly bugging him, just flicking at it. Cecilia, so if I had to just, I mean, we haven't seen him do anything, but just in terms of where he is, his condition, what he's doing, what the tracks were doing this morning, the tracks that Scott and then followed this morning already, and then culminating and finding him this afternoon. Buffelshoek, this waterhole we're at, would be a very important scent mark or landmark, if you want, for this leopard. So him and previous males that I knew in this area, Mfufunyan, for instance, they used to come past here whenever they were scent marking. So I would guess that at the moment he's on a patrol. He's spending 2 or 3 days moving around, scent marking his boundaries, leaving physical scent marks, urinating, paw scratching as well, those interdigital glands that leaves a scent, just sort of reasserting himself for his neighbours' purposes as well. Also for strange leopards, but that you never know what could come and go. But his neighbours know which areas are whose, and you have to scent mark, otherwise those guys will push into your territory. So he'd be on patrol. I'm expecting him to get up. I mean, it could be in the next minute, but judging by his body position and his sort of attitude at the moment, I would say somewhere in the next 10 to 20 minutes. I think very likely before the end of drive he will get active, and he would be heading in a typical route that he scent marks on. For him, very often that would be Buffelshoek boundary, so he would go up to a road just north of here and head west, or he could maybe cut through the corner of his territory and go down Nyala Road or something. So I don't think the reason here is necessarily that he's been mating. It's not impossible, but I think it's just that he hasn't eaten for a few days. He's actively patrolling at the moment, and then if opportunity comes, we will hunt, whether hunt his own food, or if maybe he found a kill from Karula, for instance, one of the other leopards. He's well known for sharing kills, not taking it necessarily, but sharing kills or taking it a little bit, either with the females or some of the young ones in the area. Let's have a close look at those buffalo quickly. They're also bulls, males, dagga boys we refer to them typically. The term dagga boy comes from the word dagga, which is almost like cement, if you want, mixed from mud traditionally, used to build traditional huts and homes in Africa. And these buffalo, now I hope that buffalo on the left plays along with us, because he might just flop down and make my point for me, or he might not, but they love wallowing in this sort of cement-like, if you want, mud. That wet mud is great for them to cool down. It's a great way to get rid of parasites. And because they're often found in these muddy wallows, the term dagga boy was coined, and that's what we refer to typically for these older bulls, the guys that are not in the herds anymore. They passed their mating primes, but they're still big and strong, as you can see, and they're sort of retiring now. They don't have to compete all the time with other males for females. They don't have to move as far as the female herds. They can stick around the good places. They can get the home at the beach or at the sea, and just take life easy. They can stick around close where the good food is. They can go to the waterhole twice a day if they want to drink. If it gets too hot, they can go and wallow in the mud. So, old boys club right there. Now, in case some of you are wondering, these guys would not really mind this leopard's presence at all. If they were aware of him, they would either ignore it possibly, or they would maybe go and chase him away more possibly, actually. So if the wind was to turn a bit and they smelt it, it's not impossible that you would find those buffalo coming closer to the leopard. They're not in danger from him, but he is a predator, and buffalo would try and then chase him away. Oh, look at that. Oh, I thought he was going to pop up. We had his eyes open for a few seconds, nothing more. Looks like he's lying down again. Guys, and we're in that magic, beautiful sort of end of golden hour time of the day. That's when leopard get active, but that's also when all things, but especially humans, appreciate beautiful sunsets. We can enjoy the sunset with James. He's also got some more information for you on buffalo. We're going to reposition, see if we can get a better view, and we'll see you back with this leopard if he gets active. See you just now.
Oh, look at that, everybody. Isn't that just spectacular? The foothills of the Drakensberg Mountains extending off to the west there, the last embers of the day sinking down over the hills. Isn't that a magnificent shot? Well done, drone commander. Those little knolls that you can see in the top of your screen now just disappearing, those form an interesting line of hills that actually come all the way into the Sabi Sands where we're sitting right now. Just to the south of us they reached a similar kind of latitude. And there you can see the tent. And we're going to come across here to me. Of course, buffalo are known as the most dangerous animals in Africa. The particular one that we're looking at here is not in fact dangerous any longer. It is long since deceased, no longer not breathing anymore. They don't normally sit on your lap quite as confidingly as this. But this buffalo we are most interested in, of course, because yesterday we found a daddy long-legged spider inside. And I know it seems a little incongruous, but it's a female daddy long-legged spider. And just have a look over here at what she has in her jaws. That beautiful kind of package of glorious gin-coloured eggs are in fact going to be little spiderlings very soon, and it's a distinctive mark of the daddy long-legged spider that they carry the egg sac like that in the jaws until they hatch. Now we spotted this yesterday, and every day from now on I'm going to have a look-see with this microscope exactly how far along those eggs are going. I have absolutely no idea what the incubation period for a daddy long-legged spiderling is, but when they're born I think it will be absolutely fascinating. And I don't know if any of you ever read that incredible book Charlotte's Web. It was certainly read to me when I was a youngster. I didn't read a huge amount when I was little, owing to the fact that I couldn't read until quite late. Don't worry about that. But what they used to describe was the way the spiderlings used to balloon. And what that means is that when the spiderling is ready to leave the nest, it sits on the edge of a branch or on the edge of the corner of somewhere where it lives, and it sends out this incredible little strand of silk, which gets longer and longer and longer and longer, and goes up into the wind. And eventually it gets long enough and the wind picks the spider up, and the spiderling goes ballooning off into a different part of the reserve, where it will eventually become a spider as opposed to a spiderling, set up its own web or its hole in the ground, or some other strategy that it might have for living. And that's what they do. That's what these spiderlings do. That's how they get across the countryside. Ballooning. Wonderful way to transport yourself. Now, I have one other amazing spider to show you. I'm going to put this vicious beast down on the floor. There we go. And this one Steph found, and it is very, very, very delicate. And I'm not even sure that without our proper microscope feed we'll be able to show you what it is, but I'm going to do my level best. One must do one's level best. And here, this is a grass stalk of a species called, probably it's one of the Aristida or three-awn species, but in it, in the middle of it, there is a jumping spider's home. Now, I'm afraid you've just got a close-up of my nose there, which is not ideal. We'll try and see if we can get a look at it with the microscope here. A little jumping spider about that big, their most diagnostic feature being two eyes on the front of the head, which allows them to go and hunt prey. And Steph says this chap is a fly eater. Now what I'm going to try and do is just focus in on him here, and we'll see if we can't see him inside the nest. There he is. You can just see him there. And what I'm going to do, you can see the silk, he's folded the thing over. I'm going to turn it over like that, and we'll continue looking, see if we can't spot his eyes. There we go. Sorry about this. There's a little bit jerky, but the spider is in there. That beautiful, delicate little home has been created by a tiny little spider, an adult. I mean, the size of the spiderling of the jumping spider must be quite something. Alrighty, I think that's enough of these little spiders. We're going to keep him for a little while. We'll probably release him. The daddy longlegs we will be watching very closely until the spiderlings actually hatch. Right, let's head across. We've had a magnificent sunset, and there's no better place to watch the sunset than at Buffelshoek Dam with the Mvula, he of the rain, my favourite leopard out here, and I think Peter's standing by to visit him again with you. See you just now.
Well, that's one thing you can always count on enjoying, and that is a beautiful sunset. Something about sunsets, and for some reason I want to say almost more so in Africa. People just love seeing sunsets in Africa. We get these beautiful red sunsets, often because of the dust in the air. But people just love the sunsets every time. So always nice to share that. Some interesting bits and pieces of information in the safari tent with James. So we just relocated. We were actually sitting on that side earlier. We've now moved around. He's still not doing much, as you can see, but he was popping up his head and he is actually watching something. I don't know if you could notice that. He's watching. If you look over my shoulder here to the right hand side, right up there, a waterbuck. We're going to answer another question for you just now. There's some time to talk. There's not too much happening. Now this waterbuck would be, oh, he's got his head up. Let's have a look this side. As soon as that waterbuck moved, the leopard had his head up again. Now, obviously there's a waterhole between them, so it's not an imminent hunt. But he's a big male leopard. That's an adult female waterbuck. It's on the slightly large end of what he can take down, but he'd be able to do something there. But if there's a young one with us, which is possible, waterbuck very often move in small herds, 5-6 individuals. And if there's a sort of a 1-year or 2-year-old youngster in that group, that would be something for him to go for. And he certainly looks interested. Let's see that. Look at those eyes. Yeah. Look at the tail flicking. Look at he's making a plan. Which area can he move into? Oh, this is one of the most beautiful leopards. You can see that he's Kunyuma's father. You can see it in their eyes. And he's absolutely stunning. Wow. Amazing. Look at his eyes, he's going to walk right into us. Oh wow, this is insane. He's right next to us, guys. Yo, he's right next to us. Buffalo looking at him in the back. Sorry guys, VM has got a very tricky situation. We're standing at a funny angle here. Yo. I thought he was going to walk over the Land Rover at one stage. He was walking that close to us. But that's interesting. Buffalo running away from this leopard, maybe because he's so big. Just look at that cat. Perfect shape. You were commenting on his condition earlier. He's in great condition. He's lean, but he's lean like a leopard that hasn't drunk for a day or two. Not lean like a leopard, not in good shape. Just walking around the water. He's going for those waterbuck. Which means, guys, you've got to hold on a little bit. We've got some tricky terrain here. You want to stay with him. Imagine the odds of being in a leopard hunt again. Yo, beautiful, eh? Vernon and his wife sitting with big smiles on the back there. Guys, I'm going to have to just go around this mud because we don't want to get stuck. We don't want to lose this leopard because once he's hunting, he's going to go into stalk mode. Leopards rely heavily on camouflage, stalking closer to prey, pouncing, just ambush hunting almost. It means that once he goes into the bush, he's going to try and keep himself out of the sight of the waterbuck. Which means it can be tricky to find him. So hold on a bit. Liam, great job. Sorry, it's about as tricky as it can get for you in terms of the angles. Hold on. Big bump. Whoa, come on. Should have gone low range, but we made it. All right. Guys, you're in a live safari in Africa, busy following a leopard on a hunt. This is, there's the goosebumps, yeah, that confirms it. Awesome. Let's see what happens. Waterbuck was just up ahead. Here's the leopard. It's quite casually walking along. Guys, there's the waterbuck. There's the waterbuck just there. They've seen him. They haven't alarm called, which is quite strange. There's the alarm call. They're running off. They've seen the leopard. Not sure if you could hear that sound. It's like a similar to wildebeest, quite similar to wildebeest alarm call. So they've seen the leopard. They go, which tells the leopard that they've seen him. Also tells the other waterbuck, listen, there's danger around. And you can see his way of walking now. He's not really stalking. He's not keeping himself low. He's walking like a confident, dominant male leopard that he is. And this confirms what we discussed earlier. He is on a territorial patrol. He's heading straight north towards Buffelshoek boundary. My guess would be that he's going to turn straight west towards the sun from there, towards the sunset, to mark his area. We're going to stick with him. You're going to disappear for a bit, some of you, but when you come back, we should be with this leopard. See for everyone with us, we can answer your question shortly, but if this was the TV show, now we've been ad break now, which means that you've got a special seat in the behind the scenes section if you want, and what happens even while there's other things going on the television broadcast. So it's just nice to know that for you as well, when we do these sort of slight changes in, call it pace if you want. Yes, question time. Leopard time, question time. Barbara asking how old Mvula is, and I should know this off the top of my head, but Mvula was dominant, just becoming dominant in 2009. 2009 is when I photographed him the first time, and he became dominant in this area. Typically leopard, oh, look at how strong he is, how virile he is. Typically leopard become dominant at age about 4 years old to 5 years old. So let's say he was about 4 years old beginning 2009 when we started seeing him. End of 2009 he would have been close to 5, give or take a few months. 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, end of 2015. 6 years plus about 5 years puts him at 11 years old. So that would be working out his age from purely behavioral aspects. In other words, when he became dominant, how long he's been around, and that puts him at the sort of older end of a big male. 12, 13, 14 would be old for a male to be dominant. So 11 years old is a good sign, and I must admit, photographing him now, he's still beautiful. There's no sign of starting to look sort of worn. I remember Mafufanyaan, the male before this guy that was dominant, that Mvula took over the area from. Mafufanyaan, by the end of his reign, you could start seeing that this guy had worked. He was scarred, and he looked like like an old heavyweight boxer that might go for one more round and have one comeback. But all in all, he was tired of fighting. And this guy still looks like he could be dominant 2 or 3 years easily. And you guys can stay right there wherever you're happy, if you don't mind being in the back, and I might get a nice shot of you. Oh guys, I want to take a quick picture of Vernon and look at that, beautiful, walking right up to them. They won't mind being seen in this. Lovely. Lean forward, Barbara, if you can. Oh, look at that. Oh, and you just walk right past them as well, guys. That's they just experienced what we experienced a few minutes back. That leopard just totally relaxed, comfortable, walking past us. Yeah, you're going to move again. Lots of things happening all at once. I think if I caught the name amongst everything going on there, Cheryl was asking what other reasons would leopard have for taking over territories or areas. Oh yeah, Cheryl, you're from Illinois. And the reason leopard keep territory actually is not, food obviously plays a role. Resources, as we all know, food, water, that's very, very important. But the reason they ultimately do so is to have females within their territory they can mate with and pass the genetics on, next generation. generally speaking, if there's females living there, that would mean there's good resources, and that would mean that would also be part of it. But the key for them is to have access to those females for passing on their genetics. Guys, you can just see it's just disappearing into the northern area. It's not an area that we can go in. Obviously for the leopard it's not a problem. In fact, he just walked along this perfect footpath. If you look here just in front of us, that's a hippo footpath. So he's walked down that, just down there, and he's going to go north. I think Vernon they might follow with him, but for now we're going to continue on towards the west. This has been a fantastic afternoon with this leopard, and so lucky to have seen him almost go close towards by. Continue on, there's big smiles there. You guys don't mind being seen, eh? You don't mind being seen camera-wise? Alright guys, Vernon and Barbara. Fantastic. We'll see you again in the next day, eh? That was lovely. Enjoy the afternoon. Ah, great. Another great thing, guys. You're going to jump there, something watching the drone. Have a look at it. We'll see you back in a bit.
Well, everybody, isn't that just absolutely incredible? There's a hyena standing here probably about 150 meters from where we are standing in the tent. Andrew is flying the drone basically inside that hyena's ear, and it's not reacting in the slightest. It's the most wonderful thing. Andrew is sitting where we are, so he's probably about 200 meters from it, and you can see, I'm just going to head over to his feed. I'll come back to the camera now if I need to, but I'm now standing looking over Andrew's shoulder watching that hyena. And the hyena is not actually looking at the drone, he's looking pretty much towards where we are. He's basically looking at the few of us. Tebs is standing outside the tent with me, and we're just watching this incredible little scene unfold as the hyena, well, he's just on his evening forage really. He's probably one of the males of the same clan we've been watching all day long. And I'm sure as Peter probably told you, the males tend to spend their time away from the clan, especially when they're denning. That's because they forage quite a lot on their own. And he is now heading basically towards us, which is wonderful. And so he'll go off and forage in the night as it's got quite cool now, and he'll enjoy going off to try and find bits and pieces to eat. He's quite close to the tree where Mvula had her kill, so I think there's probably still quite a strong smell from around where Mvula was dropping bits and pieces probably onto the floor. You can see him lying down there very relaxed, which is just superb. But what an incredible day we've had with those hyenas at the den, with that little one coming out. And like I say, I think probably a female, only one cub, so she's probably killed a sibling. And with the other one, of course, with the 6-month-old, seemed to be in the same place there. Sorry, I'm just missing out a few comms here. The other one seemed to be in the same place, the same den on top of the mound, and I think that 6-month-old hyena is probably the matriarch's daughter. We don't really know, but it's possible that the new one is the matriarch's daughter, but I don't think so. I think that you'll find that the new one that's been born killed her sibling, possibly ate her, and if not, her mother certainly would have eaten her, but will be subordinate to the female there. And we had a question earlier this morning. Let's go back into the tent, everyone. We had a question earlier today, a very good one, about how, and I'm sorry, I just forget the name of who asked it, but it was this morning, and it was a brilliant question about how hyena give birth and the pain involved in it. Because a hyena, of course, as you would have noticed, I'm sure some of you who were looking at that little one this morning will have noticed a pseudo-penis. So it eventually becomes a, sorry, I have to put on my hat, gangster, when I'm inside, otherwise you can't see my face. You would have noticed that she had quite a long, sort of, would look like a penis, but it's actually a pseudo-penis in the females. And the question was about the pain, or how they give birth. And basically they give birth through that pseudo-penis. And some first-time mothers actually die from the injuries caused by that. So very similar to human beings in that childbirth for a hyena is quite a dangerous thing. So interestingly, it does come through that sort of enlarged clitoris or pseudo-penis, and that is how hyena give birth. So we're looking at the dying embers of the day, and while we're doing that, let's head across to young Jamie. She seems to be looking at a stick. I believe there's something interesting there. Oh no, there it is. I can see it now. It's a black-bellied Quran. How magnificent. I hope it calls for you. Let's head across there, and I'll see you just now.
We should be in for a very special treat. I'm going to be absolutely quiet so you can hear this amazing call. Come on, boy. Been doing it so patiently for the last 10 minutes. Can do some more. Watch its head. There's a very slow whistle and then a pop, like a bubble bursting at the end. I'm going to wait and see if it'll do it again. I'm going to be absolutely quiet. I'm not sure if you heard that. That was awesome. It's just the most bizarre little call combined with the neck movement, and he's going to keep doing it. I don't want to shuffle any further forward because I'm nervous that it might make him stop. Now this is the male, obviously. The male of the black-bellied bustard species has that black belly that extends all the way up to the neck, and they do this incredible call. There is a whistle and then that pop like a bubble popping. He keeps hiding behind the trees every time he does it though. Ooh, sorry, excuse me. That's not the call of the black-bellied bustard, that's dust. He is calling regularly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and sneak forward and we will try and get a good view of him as he does it with his head moving upwards. I think he's going to move a as we wait for our gentleman to call again. Oh, I think he's going to. It's the end bit that I love. It's like it builds up in his throat. Oh, no, don't stop there. I've got such a nice open view of him. Oh, as he disappears behind a tree, there he comes. Here we go, I think he's going to do it again. Come on boy, one more time. Here we go. Oh, he seems to be disappearing, and I wonder if we could get him back. And I believe that Brian does some incredible impersonations. I don't know how you feel, Brian. Do you think you could imitate our special busted noise?
Try.
Looking up. That was brilliant, Brian. You got him to call back.
We got an answer.
Brian Brian's having a conversation with the bustard. Brian, shall I leave you here? You two can have a good chat. That was so cool. Not only a talented cameraman, but an epic mimic. And off goes our black belly bustard. Very cool. That was so nice and in the open. That was epic. We're going to continue on our search for more amazing and magical sights to show you. And while we carry on, I believe that lots of you have been sending through suggestions for the name of my fun fact of the day, or whatever we're going to call it. And I really, really do appreciate it. Shamal, you suggested JB's Juma Journal, which I love. And Justin, who's watching us all the way in Colorado and loving alliteration. Jamie's Bush Boggle was one of them. A couple of very alliterative examples. Jamie's Wild Wonderments. And while I get my spotlight out at the same time, Susan, you suggested Jamie's Jam and Facts. We've got definitely an alliterative theme starting to come through. So I shall have a unique spotlighting technique as well as a unique fun fact of the day suggestion. I love all of your names. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And to Ashley, Cecilia, Deborah, Chris, I know that a whole load of you have sent through options. I'll go and have a look at them tonight and pick out which one I think we should nickname the segments, and it will become a theme whenever I do one of the drives. We can have a different fact for every day, or at least a different piece of new information. And the part of this that's important for me is it's got to be something that I learned that day. I'll probably take off my giant oversized cap before there's another comment that comes flying my way about it. There's no longer sun to shade myself from. But yes, it's going to be difficult to choose a favorite, but it has to be a fact of the day, something that I have learned that day in particular, because that is the best part about being out here. It was an incredible sighting with that bird that was calling, and nature is beautiful. You were loving that call and that whole sighting, and you just missed out on the name of what bird that was. It is called a black-bellied bustard. Black-bellied bustard, obviously because of the male with his black belly all the way up to his throat. The same family as the largest or the heaviest flying bird, which is called a Corey bustard. Not one that we see all that regularly out here. They prefer the slightly more open plains, but we could see one. We could definitely see one. Heaviest flying bird in the world at 17 kilograms. Huge amount of weight to then lift off into the air. It's also related to the red-crested korhaan, which also has its own beautiful call. It's a series of whistles. And you'll find that with all of the bustards and the korhaans, they're very noisy birds during breeding season. The males are particularly vocal in attracting females and quite often perform the flight displays. The black-bellied bustard does what the korhaan does as well, which is to fly high into the air and then drop his wings. Oh, that is beautiful. Absolutely stunning sunset coming through. Now I would hazard a guess and say that we have probably the most talented cameraman around, and yet there is something about experiencing the beauty of an African sunset in person. It's the smells, it's what you're listening to. Franklin all going to bed. Beautiful. We've been treated to some really truly spectacular sunsets over the last few days. And as we come to the end of our rainy season, now got those hot days back again. Right, I'm going to continue on my search for weird and wonderful things to show you. And speaking of weird and wonderful things, I believe James would like to have a word with you all.
Hello everybody. We've had a couple of inquiries about this bone that is resting on my shoulder, threatening to crush me to death. It is in fact the bone of an elephant femur. Now that is the top part of an elephant's leg, and we had a question from Pamela about whether we've had any elephants walk past here. I think there have been some elephants walking past here. Just not while we've been in here. And Gracie, you wanted to know what this is. Well, this is the bone that was sitting on the top of the cabinet there, and Gracie, it's from an elephant, and it's very, very heavy indeed. It's probably heavier than you are. It weighs, I would say, about 15 to 20 kilograms. That's one bone. And Gracie, if you're an 8-year-old of normal size, you probably weigh about the same as this does. About 20 kilos. Pretty heavy, really. That's quite an impressive bone, isn't it? Nice shot there, Tibbs. Good job. Okay, I'm going to put it back, and then I'm going to show you one more thing before we say goodbye to you. Wow! 1,120! Okay. Now, let's have a look here. This is a harlequin click beetle. So let's go to the microscope and have a look. Oh, merciful heavens, it is actually working. There we go. Here comes the harlequin click beetle in all its finery. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Now, the harlequin click beetle is called a click beetle because he makes a clicking sound. And just between the protothorax and the mesothorax, what used to be in my biology class thorax and abdomen, there's a little joint. And you can't see it properly on this microscope, but it's just in there where I was pointing. And what it does is that it clicks. So when this beetle is on his back like that, right? You've all seen beetles lying on their backs, so I think come back to the desk view here and we'll have a look there. You've all seen beetles lying on their backs before, and what happens is with this thing, he's got a special adaptation. Most beetles just lie there kicking in the air and looking ridiculous. This chap can bend his back and click that joint, and it makes a loud clicking noise, and he goes up into the air, and with any luck lands as he has there on his feet. So that's why he's called a click beetle. Beautiful bird. Not bird, in fact it's a beetle. So I think that's probably all we have to say about this click beetle, except to say that you have the elytra here. Now the elytra, of course, we pointed these out this morning. These are the front wings, form part of the shell, and just an amazing colour in these, the harlequin beetle. You can see the different wax. This is a kind of waxy hair on the top, and underneath you can see the flight wings that it would use to fly in. Right, that was the harlequin click beetle. Let's head across to Mr. Peter Pretorius. He is searching the night with a spotlight. Notice the different spotlighting technique that he has compared with Jamie's. Jamie's is of course the most unusual one in the Lowveld. We'll see you a little bit later.
Well, what a fantastic afternoon. It's lots of things happening. I'm still ecstatic about that leopard sighting. It's just such a beautiful cat. Sunset, of course, is still the last sort of moments of sunset is still around us, and I believe Brian actually mimicked that black-bellied koran so well, black-bellied bustard, and called back, which is quite cool. I was telling to BM now on camera that Brian is the perfect person to do that. He can make amazing sounds. Lots of interesting things. We've got a few minutes left, 5-6 minutes of game drive. We are in the general area now of where we had female leopard tracks this morning, slightly more towards the west from us, but maybe if she moves around we thought we might bump into her. This morning I thought most likely Karula, but some other information I had since then, just in terms of some other tracks as well, makes me think that it might well have been Shadow, just right on the sort of the very edge of the territory where Karula and Shadow's areas would slightly overlap. So let's take a route that takes us along that sort of imaginary boundary. Maybe we find her. Guys, just another reminder, I'm sure it's been mentioned, if it hasn't or if you've missed it earlier, tomorrow morning we will only be doing 1 hour drive that will be broadcast. We're putting a few things in place and testing a few things, I believe, later on. So for the sunrise safari, it's going to be only 5 to 6 Central African time. So sort of sunrise for the first hour, which is the best hour. Maybe we find a Vula again, depending on how far he moves tonight. We've got potentially 1 or even 2 female leopards in the area of Western Gari, according to the tracks. Lovely skies. So do join us in the morning, but just be reminded that it will only be a 1 hour safari. Also, as always, any information maybe you're new with us on the blogs, you can get information as well from WildEarth or Safari Live. We're wearing these great t-shirts around camp, and I'll see if I have time tonight. I'll put a picture up of it. I took quite a nice one last night with Alex and Safari Live. It's just nice to have a t-shirt, you know. Been there, done that kind of t-shirts. There's 1 or 2 t-shirts in the world that I would love to have. That's one of them. What we're doing right now at this moment. So lots of things to look forward to. It's going to be a busy week for us. Just out here at Juma Game Reserve. Everyone is here. Graham also flew in again this afternoon. Emily is arriving later on this week. We've got Drew coming in from National Geographic. We've got everyone. Alan, who I haven't met Geraldine today for the first time. So there's some new staff around that's nice to meet, but the whole team, the whole gang is here, guys, and please know this, I mean this, and you know me, as sincerely as it can be, it's just as important that you guys are all with us. And with you guys, I mean everyone on the drive right now, but especially all of you that have come a long way with us, that understand what we do here, that have the same heart, the same mind, that are part of the team, because there's going to be lots of new people on the blogs and the chat rooms and the pictures and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all those things. There's going to be a big boost over the next while, many more people joining us, and you guys are absolutely crucial. You know, you're the guys with experience of Safari Live. Sometimes to help people explain a few things, understand a few things, make them part of the community. Big thank you for all of you that reached out and said hello to Jason and Nick. So fantastic things that were going on. So on that note, lots to look forward to. Fantastic, busy week ahead for all of us, and an even busier but energy-charged week as our Friday. There's a little antelope sleeping there. Saturday morning, our first live drive to TV. And of course, all of you are not only invited along, you have to be there. We can't do it without you. We're going to continue on. VM and myself, we're not that far from camp at the moment. And just to take you somewhere else before we say goodbye, we're going to go back to the safari tent with James, and I will see you tomorrow again. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the last few minutes.
Well, everybody, what a day it has been. I am particularly touched by the fact that those trackers came in today, Jeffrey and Bright, and immediately with Scott. I mean, I don't think it was a particularly, not their most difficult track, but how incredible that they found that leopard on foot, and to have sight of him. He was definitely aware, I think, of Scott sitting there, totally unthreatened. They were a good distance away. The animal was totally unthreatened, and he's just the most magnificent male leopard. He's my absolute favorite, and I'm very jealous that I wasn't there to see him. But of course, we had the opportunity to watch him just as you did, wherever you happen to be in the world today. So wonderful with Mvula. He's back. Let's hope he stays around for Big Cat Week. As Peter says, you guys are a crucial part of that for us. So please do stay tuned and bear with us during the rehearsals over the next little while. We are going to only have an hour with you tomorrow morning. Just remember that. I think it's only the first hour from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And thereafter we're going to go into our rehearsals for the Big Cat Week. We're very excited about it. HT will be in the tent, Peter and I will be on vehicle, and I think Scott or Brent, well definitely Scott or Brent will be on foot. So a big thanks to Tebs. Thanks Tebs for your work today. Sterling job done. Louise and Andrew and HT and Steph for finding all those things out there. Really amazing stuff that they've managed to glean off quarantine clearings. And a big thanks to the girls in the final control. I'm going to leave you today with a last image of a beetle, and this is a female fork-horned rhino beetle, and she is nodding her goodbyes to you. So good night and stay safe and happy wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you at 5 o'clock during the brilliance of the African dawn tomorrow. Bye bye, see you then.